All right. Well, Lisa Duerre, Cheri Torres, and I first met with the xChange community. And I thought about when we met in this shared passion of creating environments of well-being that work for all. And Lisa's work in leadership development is all about helping bringing solutions to organizations to help prevent burnout. And her dedication to uncover and focus on what I see as life-giving insights and helping people achieve what they want is very inspiring. Now, today's conversation isn't about your work, it's about your life. And it centers around an incurable disease called lipedema. And we've learned it affects more than 17 million people in this world. Or maybe that's just in the United States alone. You may be able to help us understand that. And we had a conversation over a month ago with Lisa about how she navigated the challenges of this disease. So I want you to know, Lisa, that Cheri and I are very grateful for your willingness to share this journey. Cheri and I had a car ride. We were together a couple weeks ago, and we thought, how do we make this a conversation worth having? And what kind of generative questions could we ask you? And unfortunately, Cheri couldn't join us because she's with her husband, Michael Torres, who had open heart surgery today. And as of now, he's in recovery and doing well, which allows us to continue on with our conversation about lipedema. And I know Cheri really wanted to be here as well. So we would like to start just with, what is this disease you have?
I know Cheri, right? Like, let's just Cheri and Jackie asking me what lipedema was like, how do you shut me up? So here, well, this is the first question we're going to do, Jackie, right? Like, what is lipedema? So, first of all, thank you for having this conversation worth having. Your book, your process, the both of you have been a massive inspiration to me in dealing with what is currently an incurable disease that I've lived with my whole life and didn't know, that was affecting me to the point where I was really unable to walk or stand. And I'm now happy to say I can actually talk about the disease, I can share with you what it is, and I can also truthfully look you in the eye and say that I'm able to live well with lipedema in many ways because of what I've learned in conversations worth having. Is the power of the reframe and looking for the generative space here. So, what is lipedema? I'd like to read you the actual definitions because this is a very scientific thing we're about to say, and then I'll talk to you about how it presents in your body if you like. But lipedema is a chronic disease with elements of an adipose disorder and lymphatic dysfunction with a decrease in lymph transport capacity with duration of symptoms. Now that's very official, right? It was discovered, first identified by Allen and Hines, and the characteristics are poorly defined and it's very complex. So what that means is, to anyone in the world, what is lipedema? It is basically confused by doctors and society as obesity. So you have like swollen legs or fatter parts. It's disproportionate fat in your body. And there's 5 types, but typically it's either in your legs, like your lower legs or your thighs, could be both, in your buttocks, in your arms. And for me, I have it everywhere. So it's in my arms, my legs, my buttocks, my hips. And so often people think they're fat or they're overweight. And what's really happening for 1 in 11 women is that you have a medical disease that's happening underneath, that's presenting in the world as fat or obesity, and it gets misdiagnosed. And then you get to where I was, where you're unable to really walk or function in your body, in your world, because it takes away your mobility, right? It's very hard to function.
That's interesting. So how did you first, since it's misdiagnosed and even a patient may not realize, how did you find out you had it? And how did it begin to impact your life when you got the diagnosis?
Yeah. It's interesting. And I think I told you a little bit about this when we first met, but when I started RLD Group, our consulting firm, I had spent decades in tech. I had burnt out, I had rebooted, and part of my reboot from burnout was taking my health seriously. So I looked at my sleeping, I looked at my nutrition. I actually joined a medical weight loss group sponsored by an organization that is very well known. I spent 82 weeks in this program, being met with doctors every week, blood test, nutrition. We did everything. I lost over 85 pounds and I was like, oh, I finally figured out my weight. Right. And so I started RLD Group. I took all the headshots and felt very proud about how I was presenting in the world as a healthy, person who was talking about burnout. Well, the shape of my legs didn't change. They were still very large, and I can show you some pictures. We can talk about it. And that my upper arms didn't change, but I did drop a significant amount of weight. And what happened was over time, when menopause hit for me, is when it really, really flared, and I was not able to walk, and I canceled a family vacation. And my stepmother was just like, "This isn't right. It's not like Lisa, something's up." And she started Googling the symptoms of how she described my column-like legs or cankles or swollen legs. And she found an article and called me and said, "I think you have this disease." And it just was like mind blowing, right? Especially your stepmom, who I've known my whole life and was always telling me my legs don't look normal, which that's already like, oh, don't tell me my legs don't look normal, right? I want to fit in and look like everyone else. But I honestly believe she saved my life. She saved my mobility and my mental health. So that's what happened. And the thing about lipedema that we know is there is a hormonal component here. So it does flare or exacerbate in puberty, pregnancy, perimenopause, menopause, and gynecological surgery, Jackie. So like a hysterectomy, right? That's when it flares. And so for me, it had been progressing, but where it really, really got bad was when menopause kicked in. And that's when I gained over 100 pounds in like less than a year and couldn't figure out what was wrong, what was going on. It was really hot. It was really, really challenging.
So, you said in the opening comments that you said it's currently incurable.
Mhm.
So there is hope that it will be curable. So how has it impacted your life from when you found out I'm living with an incurable disease?
Yeah. Well, first is I'm reframing it as yet. It's
Yeah,
not curable yet,
yeah.
right? That I think is a very powerful thing I've learned from you and Cheri and all the work you do, the positive frame, right? So if I walk around, which just started walk around, that's kind of funny saying that because I wasn't walking. If the mindset I had in the beginning had stayed with me, I would not be doing as well as I am, right? So when you find out it's incurable and progressive, it's really scary, really, really scary. And I had to decide what lens, what frame, how am I going to look at this in my own body and support myself in the process. So even the simple yet gives me so much more hope than it's incurable, right? Um, the thing for me that I think the thing for me that was really, really hard in the beginning was not having the information I needed, having it being misunderstood, and unraveling the decades I spent beating myself up for how I presented in the world as a large body, right? A plus size woman. And
Mhm.
always thinking that I was doing something wrong with either my food intake. And after I had done that weight loss, supervised weight loss program, I had to really grieve the story I had told myself that wasn't even true in many, many ways. Do I think I have a component of obesity going on? Yes. I think that lipedema and obesity can play together. I don't think I just have lipedema. I actually have lipedema that's progressed to lymphedema. So there's swelling now, right? It's more complex for me. But unraveling all of the shame and blame and kind of self-loathing and like why do you let yourself look like this in the world was really hard. So I've been really working on looking at fat bias and weight stigma on top of this too. Um, and I think I'm just giving myself grace. And when I get stuck, I locate myself and then I start figuring out, okay, what is a generative question I can ask myself, or how might I flip it instead of like, why me? Right? How come this is happening to me? Why did it take so long? I'm like, I'm glad I know now and I'm going to talk about it. Right? Because when we share our stories, it's actually really powerful. So I
And
don't know
that
if I answered your question, but
No,
that
you
was,
did. And I want to zone in on something because we talk about the power of tuning in where you pause, breathe, and you get curious. At
yeah.
one point, you decided to take a 1 month sabbatical and just focus on you and your health. And that to me is a great pause and long pause going on. What was that about? And what did you do over that period of time?
It's interesting that the pause, notice and
Breathing.
get curious, right? So nothing was working last summer. My business was not going well. I had a lot of limiting beliefs. I was really judging myself. I'm a public speaker. What if I get on stage? What are they going to think? How am I going to fit in an airplane? What is travel going to be like? Are they going to be willing to pay first class because I don't fit in a normal seat? Like all of this, like yuck that was going on inside. And I knew that in order to really run a thriving business, which we do fabulous work and our clients love us, but I was really stuck in a downward spiral. And I just decided that the only thing I could do that I knew before was to take a break. That's what I did when I rebooted from burnout. I took a break and got in nature, spent a lot of time outside, and just started researching and connecting with support groups and other lipedema patients and friends. I reconnected with friends because I had been hiding. I didn't want people to see all the weight gain, right? I didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want to have to talk about it. Um, and so that month I just spent being present in my life, in my body, because you can't take lipedema off and stick it somewhere. It comes with you. So, I can either educate or walk around feeling embarrassed and ashamed, and I'm going to educate, right? So I really filled my cup in that month off.
So one of the things we say, Cheri and I talk about in our book is you will still have those ain't it awful moments, those ain't it awful conversations, because you're human.
Yeah.
And especially with what you're going through. How have your inner conversations changed since your sabbatical? I'm sure you're not above the line 100% of the time, but can you share how have you, when you feel yourself falling to the line or below the line, how do you get above that line?
I think part of getting above the line for me is changing the conversation in my household. So I need in the beginning, so I've done a lot of conservative therapy to improve my mobility, and I'm happy to say I'm doing better. And there were days when my daughter would want to go out to Target,
Mhm.
but the thought of going to Target, parking, getting there, finding the scooter, getting in the scooter, navigating the store, being out of breath, worried what people would think, um, there's a lot to navigate. And so what I tried to do in the beginning was figure out how to talk about it in a way that my family could better understand what it was like in my body. Because with lipedema, there is pain. It's painful fat. And you live your whole life thinking everyone feels that way because you don't have a comparison. And we don't talk about this, but taking your blood pressure hurts, standing in line at like a Starbucks, it hurts, your knees hurt when it progresses. And I think the first thing I did to get above the line in my family was to get really vulnerable and say to them, this really hurts. I'm feeling anxious. I don't know how far the walk is going to be. I remember my daughter wanted to go to like a festival at a park, and there had been like a shooting, like on the news. And my first thought was, how do I protect my child if I can't move fast enough?
Right.
And do I even want to go to this festival? And I had to say that out loud. And then we had to come up with a family plan and figure out what we could do rather than me staying in that in my head and either being resentful, checked out, or I don't know, scared. Right. So it's the first step for me was really talking with my family about the pain levels and the anxiety that I was feeling about being in a world that isn't really designed for a large size woman.
And that's really important to be able to have, in conversations worth having. We talk about, think about how much of your awake hours do you spend, Lisa, in conversations in your mind about this disease, and also conversations with others who have this disease or those in the healthcare system helping you. And what you've just shared with us is with your family.
Yeah.
Um, and it, just listening to you, you can hear when that you've really been applying the practices and techniques and conversations worth having that keep you in that gracious space.
Yeah, we ended up having code words, Jackie, because in the beginning I was like, I count. Just hand me my phone. I forgot it downstairs. Or, I don't want to go. I'm tired. And I really started to say to my family, because I just felt like a burden, right? I felt like a burden. I couldn't cook anymore. Not that I'm a great cook, but I can at least heat up some meals, right? But standing in the kitchen hurts. And my husband's like, well, let's get a chair. That's a great idea. So it turned a lot into how might we or how might I? And
Mhm.
that was one of the big things and then it was also imagine, we were to take this family trip. Like we took a travel trailer to Canada. And I said, okay, as long as I can hang out in the travel trailer and not have to trek all over Canada, we're good, right? However, when we got in that travel trailer, I barely fit. It was hard to sleep. It was hard to move around. I was so anxious. And because I have these tools now, I said to my family, okay, here's what I need. I need space to get ready and not feel that I'm in your way because I'm already struggling being in this tight quarters. Right. Okay, mom. Right. Here's what I'd like to see. I'd like for us to really enjoy our time together. And what that means for me is I'm going to need an hour in the morning to get in the pool because that helps my lymphatics. Get back, shower, get dressed. So we're not really doing anything before noon. Okay, guys? Right? So really just kind of owning, imagining a good family trip means that I'm regulated and not anxious or, overwhelmed by what sounded like a great idea, but I didn't think about the size of the bathroom, what the bed would be like, how many steps there would be, or how far, the recreational parts would be based on where we parked. Just, the trains, like all the things I didn't think about. So we did it, but I think as a family, we navigated it well because we were able to have the conversations we needed to have, right? Imagine a good time. What's that look like for all of us? How might we, meet each other's needs in the process? So, yeah, I think it's a constant opportunity for learning and practice.
Well, I love that conversations worth having, the generative questions and the way you frame is just, you practice it. So it's so natural. Every time we connect, Cheri and I connect with you, you are asking what and how, and these types of questions not only surface assumptions, makes the invisible visible, which you did with your family. It inspires possibilities. There's a shared
Mhm.
understanding, and it really builds trust and love amongst you and your family. And that's a beautiful story. Sharing, going on a vacation with so many people, jumping in the car to run to Target,
Mhm.
that you really learn to take these practices and navigate your now to where you are now and where you need to go. And you do it, Lisa, you do it with such grace, with just
Oh,
such
thank you,
grace.
Jackie.
And it takes a lot of courage
I
to go up there.
appreciate
You're
that.
very vulnerable. Um,
Yeah.
what do you want to tell others who are struggling with this disease or another disease? Or they may not know they have a disease, so that they don't wait as long as you had to wait if it wasn't for your dear mother-in-law, right?
Right. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
would
I
you?
think that I would say a couple things. I'll talk about lipedema specifically, but then I want to just go out to any chronic illness, right? Because here's the thing that I tell leaders all the time is what's going on behind the Zoom screen. Like you can't tell right now, my legs are elevated on a footstool. You don't know that it took me, an hour after I took my shower to cool off and catch my breath and get ready for this camera, right? All you know is here I am. And oh, your lipstick looks good, Lisa, right? Well,
Yeah.
there's stuff going on. When you and I first got together, I said, okay, I'm below the line, but I know in this conversation, we're going to get above the line because I know this is a generative moment for me with you, Jackie. So, the first thing I would say from lipedema specific, let me show some pictures just so people
Okay.
can see. So, if you have easy bruising, if you think you have cankles, right? No ankles, your legs just go down column like. If your parts of your body are disproportionate to the rest its size, right? That's something to pay attention to. But let me show you some pictures because I
Okay.
think this will help. So this is a postcard from the Lipedema Project, and they do plenty of research and they have a wonderful research paper out. But I think this really shows something in that this is what's called stage 1, and then you go to 2, 3, moderate, and 3, severe. And what you can see is, and this is just one person, one sample of that, but you'll see ankle cuffing, right? You'll see you start to lose your knees. You'll see what people call mattress-like texture. And really, I used to think that was cellulite on me. I mean, I was like, oh, I have cellulite, okay. But no, no, no. These are nodules under your legs. The fat you can actually feel when you palpate it. And then eventually it gets to the point where you have overlaps and you're very disfigured with your legs, right? So you can imagine, I went from here to here in menopause and I'm trying to walk around and it's really hard because your legs are heavy. And for me, my arms are heavy. When I blow dry my hair, my arms are done. My daughter's hair is down past her waist and I blow that and I need a break, right? So I'll just pause here and show you that this is a sample of what legs with lipedema might look like, but you'll also see people with a tiny waist, which I have, and much larger hips or buttocks
Mhm.
and disproportionate, right? And same with your arms. So if you happen to know someone or you think to yourself, my legs look like that, or my arms are like that, it's worth exploring if it might be lipedema. Um, and there is a quiz we'll drop the link in here, but there's a do I have lipedema quiz from the Lipedema Project, and it shows you. And then there's also this paper I have in front of me that I'll put it up on here the proposed framework for research case definitions of lipedema. It's been around, as I mentioned, since the 40s, but this is the first time, this just came out this year, to actually define the disease for research. Because many times you might have a control group, with research, Jackie, in a control
Right.
group, someone might show up and looking like it's obesity, but it could be undiagnosed lipedema, and then you throw off your research. So this paper will actually show you pictures and charts, help you with your doctor so you can talk about what might be going on in your body. It's
And
it's
let's make sure
wonderful.
we put that in the notes or even a download.
Yep.
And one of the other things that inspired, well, you obviously, Lisa, inspired this interview, that you said there's a conference coming up in the fall
Yeah.
on, and
Yeah.
how can people learn about that? And what is this conference all about?
Yeah, so I facilitate a conference twice a year for lipedema patients now in partnership with Lipedema Simplified and Lipedema Project. And we bring patients together, healthcare providers, caregivers, anyone who wants to know more. And we educate, we connect, and we build action plans. Very much inspired by conversations worth having because I'm facilitating and asking generative questions, right? So the best way to find it is on the calendar of events for Lipedema Simplified, and we can link that here too. But there's always a free webinar. There's always a way to learn more. And the conferences are really a time when you can build your action plan for navigating this disease through all the aspects of your life. And if I could close the loop on one thing you asked me, whether you have lipedema or not, if you have a chronic illness or your caregiving responsibilities or you're overwhelmed or stuck in anything, my advice would be to pick up this book. This book really helps you unlock and get unstuck. Or listen to the audiobook, right? But conversations worth having for me as a mom, a wife, a sister, a lipedema patient, a business owner, it applies in every aspect of my world. And it helps me get back to where I can be innovative and have hope and find ways. So I think that's my advice to anyone, regardless of the disease or the stuck spot. I mean, it's just the playbook, Jackie. What you've built here it's mind blowing how easy and practical it is to do. And, you always get to try again. If you mess it up, you just go back and flip it again and try again. No one, it's okay. You can do that.
One thing, Cheri couldn't be here with us, but one thing in an email exchange, and I grabbed this today, I want to read, when we were exchanging emails about you, is, well, first of all, it's always a joy to reconnect with you. Every time I reconnect with you, it's like we just talked yesterday. Cheri had written that it's uplifting to see how true you remain to yourself and how you take such a debilitating disease and make it a gift for yourself and others. Your inspiration is just, it's so inspirational to the xChange community, the Conversations Worth Having community. I would imagine the community of your neighborhood and where your daughter is, you would never know the disease you have if we were on Zoom here. And you just do it with such selfless grace.
I appreciate you both so much. And I really do want to say to you that, when I first got the introduction, because I really wanted to have you guys on my Control Alt Delete podcast, because I see this book as such a valuable tool. And to be able to experience you in ways that I knew already from the book, where your hearts are and who you are as people, but to have this relationship that's so life-giving every time we talk. I appreciate your words. I appreciate this space. I appreciate this conversation because it is a conversation worth having. And I'm just really grateful for the work that you've both put out in the world, Jackie. And, I don't know if you have a biggest fan list, but I'm on it. I'm just putting myself up there. I'm one of your biggest fans.
Yeah.
I have two
You have
books,
two.
not one, right? I got two.
Right?
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, and those for listening, I would not have known about your disease if I wasn't following you on social media and seeing what it was like to live with this disease. And that's how I learned about it, because you don't bring it into your everyday conversations.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lead with lipedema, but
No.
if we trust each other and we have a relationship and you say, how's it going? If I'm having a hard day, I'm honest. Because I really feel that the more we can practice that as leaders in our own worlds, the more we give others permission to just let their guard down and be like, yep, today was tough too, because we can work through it together. I think your book also creates connection with yourself and connection with each other because of the conversations that you're having. So I'm glad it's not the first thing you see. And I'm glad we get to talk about it because 1 in 11 women out there in your organizations, in your communities, in your households, they're walking around thinking, how come diet's not working, right? Because lipedema does not respond to exercise or diet. That's why my legs stayed looking the way they did, even though the other weight came off.
Well, I'm curious. You talked about it as not curable yet. Is the disease manageable?
It is, yes. If you catch it early enough, it's much easier to manage. But there's a lot of conservative things you can do, holistic treatments, whole body, right? Dealing with the mental component of this is major, right? That's one of the reasons why I love your book so much. But yes, I wear medical grade compression. I get manual lymphatic drainage. I have a lymphatic pump I sit in twice a day, if not 3 times a day for an hour each time. I've cut gluten out of my diet. I've cut dairy out. I've learned a lot about, food allergies and inflammation. Being in a pool is wonderful because it's natural compression on your. That's why when we went on that trip, I got in the pool before we did anything to just help myself. There's a lot you can do, and it also can feel like a full-time job pretty fast. So
Yeah.
again, how might I take that hour in the lymphatic pump to make the best use of time for me? Am I listening to an audiobook? Am I breathing? How might I leverage that time in ways that serve, my higher and best good rather than sitting there resenting that I'm in this pump? So I tell people, let's talk while I'm pumping. And they go, what's that? So it's kind of like a fun little way where I'm like, oh, I'm in my lymphatic pump. Do you want to see it? And, we'll talk while I'm in there. So there are plenty of things we can do. Yes.
Lisa, thank you for this conversation today. And I really wanted it to end with, is there anything else you wanted to put out there in the world? Because you put such wisdom out there to everybody.
Oh, wow. Anything else I want to put out there in the
Anything
world?
else?
I think we all need to remember that we can't see what's going on behind the Zoom screen. That would be one of my greatest things I could say, to raise awareness. And I think staying curious with that, what else could be going on? How might this be informing or shaping the person as they're showing up for that meeting? I think it's a gift we give ourselves when we can sit in your framework, right? And stay curious and connect at a deeper level with each other. I think that's really important right now. I think people are feeling very lonely and isolated and overwhelmed, and a simple leadership moment of being curious can be all that that person needs in that moment. So that would be my thought for today. Lisa's TED Talk coming at you, Jackie.
I love it. I love it.
Stay curious. Stay curious, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I appreciate you so. And Cheri as well.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Thank you.